wrong, but we will still act as if it's fine. Like if you say somebody's sleeping around your sink, when you interact with that person, you never make it known to them that you think poorly of them. You will still condone it to in your interaction with them. So how is it meaningful?
See, sometimes unfortunately, how people will think about it is something which becomes then like a, that's a burden that people carry. It is not really the valid burden, because there are people who, no matter how much you gossip, if they are going to do it, they are going to do it anyway, right? And the people who keep on carrying the burden of what people will think about it, they never actually make the right decisions. Because imagine that, let's say, divorce is a stigma, right? And people will think what? People maybe will talk. But you have to make the decisions that you have to make. That is not the criteria actually in your decision making. So you make it into a criteria where actually it doesn't belong to a,
What she's asking is that does it have a use?
No, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't, because if you want to, you'll do it, right? So therefore, and that's why both ways, you hear about it, you may worry about what people will say, but if you really want to behave like that, you'll go ahead and behave like that. It's not a deterrent to behaving differently or to you being more ethical, right? Yeah, you'll be just more careful and more devious about the way you do it, right? The second thing, as I said, sometimes you make it into a criteria in your decision making where it's not at all appropriate, right? You have to make decisions that you have to make decisions. You can't take one variable as what will people think as the criteria, because that actually, so there was a very nice, like when we were doing, this is just a little bit off the point, but it is so important in life that I don't know if anybody of you has done GMAT. So in GMAT, we have like scenarios. A scenario gives you lots and lots and lots of information, right? Lots of information. Some of it is relevant in your decision making. Some of it is not at all relevant in your decision making. Right? So therefore you have to actually, within that scenario, you need to identify what is it which is what is it that you want to achieve, what is the information which is relevant for that, what are the major factors, what are the minor factors, and what is totally irrelevant information, which absolutely you don't need to know in order to make that decision. And I tell you, it's such an amazing training, because in a lot of cases, right, that when people come to me with a problem, they try to solve so many things all at the same time. Some of it is something which is totally beyond their control, something that they can immediately do, but they are not able to identify or to say, okay, now this is what I want to accomplish and this is what I need to do in order to accomplish this. These are the variables over which I have a choice. These are certain minor variables over which I can maybe have some influence but not a total direct control, and there is some other information which is actually I need not bring in at this given point in time, right, because it's unsolvable, okay, at this point in time. So that means in the minds of people, all these different things are simultaneously making a story, and the people are not able to accomplish what they want to accomplish because everything is given equal weight and it's all jumbled up. And it's so important in your decision making and being deliberate in life, because say for example, you have a relational problem, right? Now there are other people who are involved in what they have said and what, let's say you have a relational problem with your spouse, and then who was that other character, and everything is like in your mind and it keeps on repeating, and you don't know over what you have what you can say, what you can communicate, what is changeable right now, what is not changeable, who are the characters, to whom can you talk, to whom you cannot talk. So nothing is sorted out in your head, and you just keep on playing this story and you're dissatisfied and you want to solve it, but there is no solution if you don't have clarity. Okay, so therefore that Rajusya Bhava is also extremely important, because you bring in, you may be thinking millions of things, but some things are not relevant right now. So you have to say, this is not something which I can solve right now. I have to, whether I like it or not, this is not really an immediate issue. An immediate thing that I want to accomplish is this, and what can I do right now to accomplish this in the best manner possible. If you bring the past stories of past hurt and you did this, it's totally irrelevant. Even though it may be true, it's not relevant to what you want to accomplish right now. Okay, so therefore straightforwardness means also you must have clarity in life about what you are saying and what you want to accomplish, and what is it that you can change, and what is it that is actually this information which is actually clouding your mind rather than helping you to solve it. Okay, so so therefore you even say something which is only relevant to situation. You don't bring back the memories of 25 years and you start pouring it out. You don't do things like that. If the issue right now is you don't like this given thing, right? So you talk about that. So so that is one thing. The second thing which is very, very important with reference to your kids, you know, that you can tell millions of things to your kids, but if you yourself don't behave and don't think what you say, your words are worth nothing. They can totally see through. Okay, so therefore it is extremely important. You want your child to be this perfect human being, but in order for that child to be that perfect human being, you actually have to work towards what? Your own growth and your own alignment. Okay, so therefore these things are extremely important. You know, becoming a character which is not just a frivolous character, and that there is some inner strength in you for you being who you are. So somebody also in my Rishikesh retreat, he said that, you know, but when you don't, especially kids, you know, they have peer pressure. So therefore they want to conform. So when you tell them to do something which is not really the norm, then how do you, they feel deprived and they feel dissatisfied. So how do you deal with it? So one of the participants, he was there, and what he told us is, you really, you know, kids do have a necessity to belong, right? But he said that all the kids of his son's age, they are constantly with whatever mobile or some kind of an electronic gadget with which they are constantly playing and all, and it's extremely unhealthy because you don't communicate, you don't do anything, you're like in your own world and you just kind of, you know, so therefore he wanted to teach his son not to be constantly with these gadgets. So he told his son, and he says, but you know, all my friends are like that, so how can I, if I don't do anything, what will I do? Nobody is there to talk to me anyway, and then what, you know. So he said, okay, you don't try, he told his child, he says, you learn to be the leader. You start being a leader and you don't just conform to what people are doing and saying. So he says, okay, now today all of them are just playing with their mobile, but you start going out and playing in the field, and you start playing basketball. So he says, yeah, but nobody will play with me. So he says, okay, I will play with you, we both will start playing. So then his son and he started playing basketball. One day one child came, next day 2 more children came, and then that became, you know. So therefore you keep telling the children, okay, you don't do this, it's not going to accomplish. Teach the child to do something differently and participate. Follow up, right? And that's how you bring about change. And now the child has this thing that I don't need to follow everybody like a sheep. I can be a thought leader. I can be a leader. And these kind of things, you know, that not only gives confidence to a child, makes the child progress to the next stage, and at the same time that whole thing is nourishment. Nourishment means you need to find creative ways of engaging and helping yourself move forward, and also anybody who's around you move forward. Because it's not going to happen just by your just saying 100th time. Okay, a same thing again and again and again, that you have to study or you have to do this, and the child knows already. Your 101th time is not going to be productive. So you have to find interesting, engaging, creative ways of influencing the behavior, and the method is not to put the child down, but to nourish the child, to help the child discover that thing where the child moves forward. Okay, all this is within alignment. It's all alignment, because it's really being deliberate about what you say, how you think, right? So therefore, there are certain sayings in our scriptures about, it says Satyam Vada. What is Satyam Vada? Say what you think, right? Then it says, okay, now sometimes you can think not highly, as Arnaz just said, that you can be gossiping about the person, but when the person is in front of you, you don't start saying, this is what I think about you. You are actually just very nice and very friendly with the person. So therefore, but you need not even say everything that you think about the person, because there is no need to go and tell everything. Exactly. Nobody has asked for your opinion. So now I want to be honest, so I go and tell whatever I think about whoever. That is not necessary. So therefore it says Priyam Vada. Priyam Vada means make sure, first of all, that you don't say things which are unnecessary. Everything that you think, you need not say. So Priyam Vada. And Priyam Api Hitam Vada. Okay, then
that again?
Hitam Vada means something which is of some benefit to someone. Okay. If you can slowly bring about these changes, it's something you will see what kind of a person you become is just something else. Okay, Satyam Vada, Priyam Vada and Hitam Vada. Then it adds one more nuance. It adds one more nuance, which is, I think, a brilliant nuance, and it says Rutam Vada. Okay, what is Rutam Vada? When you say, when you say what you think, you are speaking Satyam. You are speaking the truth, right? But what you think may not be true at all. So it says Rutam Vada, make sure that what you think is right. That is a huge thing.
That was my question.
Yeah.
A lot of our thoughts are
Yes.
generated from emotion.
Yes.
And say the emotion generates thought A. You know that thought A is not the right thought B is the right thought. How do you align it?
Exactly. So this is where Rutam Vada means make sure, and this is something which I see again and again and again. All the people who are giving the so-called spiritual classes and all that, they give messages at times, they are so unhealthy, that irresponsible messages, like, never be the person who knows the reality or whatever is it's completely free from fear. And you then, what do? You so exactly, so skewed, because now before that anger, so that anger which is there, now you want to even further suppress, because you want to be this wise person and you don't want to feel like that. So you are constantly in a denial. Then you say, okay, these are all negative emotions. Nothing. Emotions are emotions. Nothing is negative, nothing is positive. You need to deal with emotions. So that means they say things and they mean well, but they actually, people say, you are very purist. But what I say, if you are a sincere person, you will try to implement. So that means if I give wrong messages, and imagine you are trying to implement wrong things, in your life thinking that it is right, then what? I'm actually making what your life more messed up than what it was. So it's a huge responsibility. It's a huge responsibility to say and to make sure what you say is the right thing, because you mess with thinking of people, and that's a huge responsibility. The burden of making that confusion actually comes to me, if I let it go or if I participate in a wrong thinking. Okay, so therefore it is extremely, one has to learn to be deliberate in what one says, and mean, and make sure that what I present are the right ideas. So as Arna says, that you can, but through that emotion you really feel like that. But that itself is not legitimate thing, right? So you are speaking the truth when you are speaking from that given position, because this is how you feel. But that position itself is not a right position. So that means to ensure that that position is the right position is also your responsibility, Rutam. This is how you go further and further in your evolution. Otherwise, no matter how much you learn Vedanta, you remain the same person. All these are deliberate attempts that one makes in order to evolve as a human being. Right? So that is now what you speak, and sometimes there can be an alignment between what you think and what you speak, but it is not followed up by actions. Sometimes it's very simple. When we first moved to India, and Surya is European, so they are all pretty straightforward in what they say. So many times he would meet people at parties and they'll say, yeah, come over, and Surya would really think that they mean that you come over. And then at the end of the party he says, neither they gave us their number nor they made any appointments, so what is this come over? So therefore it's all meaning well. It's not that they were trying to deceive you or they were trying to be insincere. They really felt some affinity, and this is a way of expressing that they feel good with us or whatever, right? So that means there is some kind of an alignment between what they think. There is some goodwill, and then what they say, but it's not what followed up with an action.
And it's also part of it in this situation is really a cultural understanding.
That's true. But what I mean to say is,
in the West you would not just go over, because you would want an invite, a formal invite to go to see someone.
No, here it is not. It's not about that. That cultural. What is that? If you don't
just say things loosely.
Exactly. Saying things loosely
I don't think it's
without.
loosely. I think it's.
It is.
It's actually they
want it, but they cannot follow it up with actions.
There's too much going on.
Exactly.
They're drunk to know what they're saying.
Exactly.
It could be any reason, but they actually mean it.
Then exactly, that's what I'm saying. There can be an alignment between what they think. They may be meaning well. Please understand here. It's not a misalignment between. You don't act on. But when you say it, right? So then you need not say it.
But even at parties, the first thing you will say, hi, how are you? And you already gone to hi, how are you? And that's you already listening to that person is saying I'm well or not well. Often.
Yeah, exactly.
The American system, you enter any shop, they say, how are you doing? First thing they say. One day I was so angry with them, I started telling them, I had a really bad day. And the shopkeeper was so shocked.
What did you say?
In any shop you go to the US, they say, hi, how are you
doing?
And
Yeah.
It's a greeting.
Yeah.
The first time after the 10th shop, I got so fed up of saying how you're doing that I decided to tell him how I was doing. Complete stranger he was from Gora. He was so
Shocked. Exactly.
But
Because
it creates a sense of positivity. When someone gives you a big smile, whatever you say, or you enter a lift and the person has a grouchy face, you feel negative. But when you're in a world where someone's just giving a nice greeting, it may irritate you because you yourself are in a bad mood. But otherwise, it's a lovely, I think it creates a lovely, I like it.
In the East, they say, yeah, welcome.
It irritates you, the
Say
tone.
welcome, you see the store, and then the next one says, welcome. It's nicer than how you answer, you have to just smile.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, see, some things are cultural, some things are lightly said. It's fine, right? But what happens is that there is, so much. Exactly. Yeah, I think that's the whole thing. That paying attention to that alignment is you become a person who's different from the rest, right? We are not judging others, we are not saying they are bad, they are not, and they are doing whatever they are doing, it may have its own merit. Here it's if you want to grow, right, what is Arjava? So that means the small things, it is good to smile, but it's actually good to mean when you smile.
So don't do or say anything without meaning it.
Or that they begin to mean well, and then your expressions have to conform to what you think. So that means you have to mean well. Why not? Right? So therefore it's amazing, as Vedanta teacher, you will be surprised. Somebody's husband is not well, somebody's child is in the hospital. All the calls I get, can you please pray for me? It's incredible how much people have confidence in you. It's just how people, because for me, after the class, of course, I have a certain I do pay attention to how I am, that is for sure. But how much people look up to you is just appalling. It's appalling for me that, in this time of emergency, they think about me. And I feel so good. Then I said, if people are giving so much importance to me, then I have to take time off to pray for them. I can easily say yes, I'll pray, and I can put the phone down.
It's a huge responsibility.
So that means it's a huge responsibility, right? So that means
the word appalling. You used it.
No, it's
Feel that
appalling
hitting you
because because
level that you feel that's too high, like a god kind of level, or what is
it's like how much appalling, not in a negative manner, because I'm just sharing what I'm sharing,
More like
right?
amazing.
Yeah, appalling is in a negative way.
Yeah,
it is.
negative.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. So then, no, I didn't mean that. I meant amazing. Yeah, it is actually that
Awe-inspiring.
Yeah, it's so good. You corrected me because no, I didn't mean it in a negative way.
But also, Nima, it could mean that you need a lot of more hours in your day to accommodate everybody's expectation.
So
In
at
that
least
sense, it can be also intimidating.
sometimes it is a little bit intimidating. It is.
I
overwhelming.
think it's sort of
Overwhelming with so much.
But that's what I mean to say with reference to my behavior, right? I can either say, yeah, okay, I'll do it, and I don't do it. That is my choice, right? But if I say, if they have so much confidence in me, right, I have to do it.
You can't exactly
So
say
therefore-
something that time of need that they'll call you up, so please pray for you. Oh, I don't have time to pray for you. You can't say that.
Exactly, you can't say that,
We
right?
can't be-
So that means
you
you
can't
have
be
a
truthful when you
tendency,
actually
exactly.
don't have time.
You
You
don't
have
have
to
time.
go, you don't
So
have
therefore, our teacher used to say, it's not like you have to spend 1 hour praying for them and all. Do that 2 minutes, but actually really focus and really pray. He says, do it, because that's very, very important. So that means, so many things can happen lightly, and you can say, yeah, that's fine. And, you don't actually follow up on whatever you say. So in every small thing that you can make, either you can take it lightly or you can do something about it. It's not the amount of time that you spend, it is always your intention and your integrity. Okay? And this is what makes you the person who then stands out. That little things, it's actually, this whole self-growth is not some big things you need to accomplish. It is always those small things which actually happen in our lives, which just we don't pay attention. Whole self-growth is about self-awareness. Okay? The more aware you become, the more subtle you become, more refined you become. Everything that you do is just, it's naturally aligned. Okay? So therefore, that straightforwardness is something which needs to be cultivated. Okay? Now, the next the next value is Arjavam Acharya Upasanam. Okay, Acharya Upasanam is, first of all, in the tradition, you need to, Upasanam is a certain amount of respect for the teacher. Okay, so in fact, when we grow up, we I don't know what, we always remember teachers from whom we learned things, the teachers who made a difference in our life. Okay, so that means you had lots of teachers, but some of them stay in your memory because they were different from others. So what are the characteristics of those teachers who made a difference in your life? What did they do differently from all the other teachers that you met, that they left an impression on you?
They helped you to grow.
They helped you to grow. What else?
They probably listen to you rather than just shouting at you all the time without listening.
Very good. Very good. So that means either you feel that they understood who you are, okay, and they listened to you. They were probably not very judgmental. They brought out the best in you. They became source of inspiration. So these are all the different attributes of people who made difference in your life, right? So now imagine here it is done in the context of the Acharya who gives what knowledge of this Vedanta. Okay, so why is it so important to have certain amount of affinity with the teacher?
If you don't respect that teacher, how can you learn from her?
Yeah, exactly.
You have to respect what she says, what she says. So without that, you cannot learn anything from anybody. Because first of all, to learn something, it can be a simple. If I have to learn to sweep the floor, also I have to learn it from the servant. I have to understand in this task she is superior to me.
Exactly. Right. So therefore, this Vedanta teacher, see, every other teaching, there are few distinguishing characters. Right. Every other teaching that you go to, okay. So for example, you study mathematics, you study physics, you study medicine, or whatever you study, architect or whatever. Okay. Now, you can be a genius because you are using your cognitive capacity. Okay, but emotionally, you may or may not be. It's not like every time that you may be, but emotionally, what you may or may not be a very evolved person. Okay. Now, for Vedanta, because what is the subject matter? Yourself, right? So you can't have a situation where you gather all this information and you yourself, as you are, remain just untouched. Okay. So therefore, there is one knowledge which is going to really, and it's also cognitive. How much reasoning is used? It's not just about your emotional being. So that means it is something which is capable of making you a very complete human being. Okay, because there are some people who have extremely very good EQ, and there are some people who have very good IQ. Okay, some people have very sharp cognitive capacity, and some people they are very emotionally intelligent. Okay, in order to learn Vedanta well, you need both. You need to cultivate both. You can't just ignore one over the other, because very sophisticated reasoning is used to make you see certain things which are not so evident in our life. Okay, and at the same time, a lot of discussion is about your emotional growth. Okay, so therefore, it really ensures that your growth is complete and holistic. Okay, so therefore, and to make sure, it's a big responsibility to help somebody make our teacher used to say, Vedanta teacher is like a sculptor. Okay, there is a stone which comes, and what do you need to do? You need to chip here, you need to chip there, remove all these different ignorance to make it into a beautiful sculpture, a beautiful human being. Okay, a beautiful human being who's a complete human being, who's responsible, who's cheerful, who is proactive, who's enthusiastic, who doesn't have all these burdens, is able to discern, has clarity. Amazing. Imagine all these things that Vedanta talks about is just mind-boggling. Okay. Now the teacher also has to understand that it cannot be done overnight. And each one, what is good at one thing, like I told you, we were all good at Sanskrit, and somebody else was. Did I tell you that story about that the guy who was helping the lepers? I think I told you. Didn't I tell you? This is something which I will never forget. This story is true story, and I'll never forget. Okay. So when we were in our not Rishikesh, in Coimbatore, we were studying for 3.5 years. Who was considered to be smart? Because every time group of people get together and they are studying, there is always going to be who's understanding more, who's smart. All that will happen. It's unavoidable, right? Whether you are in the school class or college class, or you're in Vedanta ashram, it always is. So who were the smartest people?
IQ.
Exactly, right? Because absolutely, Gopi, the people with, people who could follow Sanskrit well, people who could follow the arguments well, people who could read the commentaries of Adi Shankaracharya properly, and they can articulate things properly, they are considered the smartest people, right? Now, and there were maybe 4 or 5 people who were smart. That everybody kind of thought, yeah, these are like really smart people, right? Then we had gone to Rishikesh to study Chandogya Upanishad for one month, all of us. And one of the days was Shivratri. Shivratri is the day that, so there were some celebrations in our own ashram. And then one of the guys, who was a very mediocre student, right? He said, let's go and we go to different ashrams and see how they are celebrating Shivratri. So we went and we were walking all along, and we reached Lakshman Jhula. And when we reached Lakshman Jhula, he said, okay, now let's go here. And there were this, this kind of slums, not like on the street. There were these people who were lepers. Yeah. So therefore, they, as soon as they saw us, this guy who took us, they started touching his feet. So we were like all very surprised, like why they are doing this. And they were like, oh, sir, and they were all like totally in awe. We saw they were totally in awe of him. So then we asked him, so why? We asked them, so why? Who is he? And they said that he has stayed for 1 year and he has served us. Then we said, oh my God, how many of us can do it? We can maybe do all the analysis and all perfectly, but how many of us are capable of doing what he did? Then our whole thing of who is the person who is more evolved, it has to undergo a shift. Otherwise, we create a certain kind of a norm which is not a complete norm. Okay? We are good at one and then we ignore the other side. Okay? Now Vedanta is what he's making, that person is what, this is good but you also have to cultivate this. And us, what, this is good but you also have to cultivate that. It's not one over the other, or it's not just one. Okay? So therefore, and that takes time. And that is really the teacher who makes you a complete human being. So therefore, you can say that, there are so many other human beings who are, it's not that only when you come to Vedanta people are smart or people are good human beings. There are all plenty of good human beings out there. There are plenty of very intelligent human beings out there. So what makes Vedanta, what is the value added of Vedanta? What is the value added of Vedanta?
To make you a holistic person.
Absolutely. Make you a holistic person, right? And even those thoughts that you people can be extremely intelligent in, let's say, knowing some formulas or some, whatever, okay? But that intelligence has not yet reached the level where they ask themselves this question, who am I and what's my relationship with the universe? Because if all that is here is one, and if I see many, I'm starting with a wrong starting point. And that you cannot say because that person is good human being. It's not equivalent. Please understand. The person can be just a good human being, but here the whole thing is the person understands life accurately. So that means even your cognitive levels are stretched beyond your normal cognitive capacity. Okay? And your goodness is not just, me being good. That is, so many different values are talked about from so many different standpoints. It's impossible for a human being to have cultivated all these different values in its full measure. It's impossible. You can be a good human being, you can be kind, you can have very good qualities, but everything with a proper understanding, it's impossible. So you will find some distortion somewhere or the other. And then to make that person, in terms of one's cognitive understanding as well as emotional understanding, understand all aspects of it and many different aspects of it, and really begin to work towards that. It's something which is it's a very noble thing. It's not a small thing. Okay, so that means the Acharya who helps you to do that is not. It cannot be just you can't take that person lightly. Now, there is a slight distinction which is made between Acharya and Guru. Okay, Acharya can be a person who has, let's say, studied and has probably is a good human being and who's able to understand things accurately. But a Guru is somebody who not only understands and lives it, but is able to what? Make you exact, absolutely right, to reach, because the whole teaching, please understand, the whole premise of Vedanta is what you are already, what you want to accomplish. And every knowledge, whether it is Vedanta or it is physics or it's mathematics or it is whatever, it's already there. Okay? So therefore, when you study medicine, the human body is already made. You are not creating human body. You are not creating eyes. It's already there. What are you doing? You are just what? Removing your ignorance. It's just the entire pursuit of knowledge is what? Lifting your veil. Whatever is there is already there. Okay? And so therefore, the teacher does not produce anything new. This is the teacher only is what? Capable of lifting the veil. So therefore, there is this whole thing about Gukaraha Andakaraha Vai Rukarastaha Nivartakaha Andakara Nirodhitvat Guru iti abhidhiyate. Okay, Gukara stands for Andakara. Andakara means darkness of ignorance, confusion, not seeing things. Okay? Rukaraha is Nivartakaha. So that means a teacher, what the teacher is not somebody who's, what is the teacher, how does the teacher see oneself? Not as somebody who has something very special and is going to transfer it to you. It's what the teacher sees what is, and the teacher is going to help you to see what is by removing your own veil. Absolutely. So that you can see what is with clarity. So that means it is that removal of veil. I must tell you one thing which is a very important thing. In order to remove the veil, the person has to have special skills. There are many Mahatmas who are very evolved and they may know the truth, but they may not be able to communicate and make you see what is. So that means for being a guru, you need one special quality of that communication. Otherwise, it all becomes a mystic tradition. Mystic means you sit, you meditate, and you will then be connected to the truth. And who understands what? Who knows? I can tell you, and it may be the truth, right? I can tell you the fact that you are the whole. That may be a fact. And then this is a fact. But what will you do with this fact? If I don't lead you to discover that fact, it just will remain one idea. Each one of you will think about it differently and then live from it. So that means a guru has, the whole spiritual tradition of India is not mystical. Mystical means what? You just, it's not left up to you to just kind of come up with your own reality. It is all communicated, like in every other tradition. Okay, imagine you go to medical school and the person says, now the body is already there, you sit and you meditate. What will you learn? You will not learn anything, right? The teacher has to show you, and that's why it becomes non-mystical. The whole spiritual tradition of India is non-mystical. That means you communicate and you help the person remove the veil. Okay. Now, in every other class, you come with a clean slate. You don't know anything. You study economics, you don't know anything about economics. Here in this class, everybody comes with what? Exactly. What comes with certain understanding of oneself, certain beliefs about the world, some certain beliefs about the nature of the cause of the universe. So that means you already have certain beliefs, but not only just beliefs, passing beliefs, strong, well entrenched beliefs. Right? So now you have to, what do you need to do? You have to undo it. And while undoing it, our teacher used to say that there is always what? Certain, every time I shake what you strongly believe in, what will happen? There is some resistance. Yeah. And there is some anxiety. Okay, some deeply believed notions, if I begin to, it is like an earthquake. And especially if you have invested in them and if you have really tried to study it, and then if it is, negated, then it creates a certain amount of discomfort. And when that discomfort is there, he says sometimes you want to not learn it. That is one defense mechanism. The second defense mechanism is, excellent, Bela, to be angry towards the teacher. This is something which I have seen again and again. Luckily, I have not really been so subject to it, but I have seen with reference to my teachers. We had a case. There was a student, she had studied with some other teacher and studied all these funny things about, something going up and going down and, all these funny things that people, and she stayed with my teacher for 3.5 years. At the end of the 3.5-year course, we all had to speak about, and everybody was like, how much we have gained and how we have been enriched and all. This lady, she took out all her frustration. And she says, what? We are supposed to be all accepting, and we are supposed to be all encompassing and all. And what is this? We negate, because whatever she thought in this process of learning was negated. So she took it as what? Personal insult. Okay? So every time the teacher had to say, it's nothing about what moving energies, it is about knowing the truth. Then she would do what? She would feel personally hurt, and she would feel that her teacher is being insulted. But the role of Vedanta teacher is to make you see that. because two ideas cannot, conflicting ideas cannot simultaneously coexist as equally right. Right? You can't say, let us be all accepting, and let us say, out of love for Newton, that time is both absolute and relative. And when we say,
resolution is very hard because
It is hard.
because your conflict to get clarity is not so easy sometimes.
absolutely. So that means what happens is that the teacher, right, as a teacher, you have a responsibility. You can't let it go. If I'm teaching you, I have to make you see what is. Right? But if your opinions are contrary to what I think, there is a defense mechanism. Defense mechanism is either you shut it and you don't even listen to me, right? Or you can get angry towards me. Or you can take it personally, even worse, you can take it personally and you can see it as an attack. When I make a certain statement, you see it as an attack towards you and also towards your teacher from whom you've learned that.
It's not only the teacher and this. I think with any two people and relationships, you do take it so personally when you don't conform with the same idea, the same truth. And that is the whole learning, is that to be able to understand that
That's
there
true.
is another point of view which
Yeah. So that is true for.
probably right and you are probably wrong.
That's so true.
But also without judging yourself, that is the
But
hard
don't
part.
also
Because
so be so ready to say that you are wrong and the other one is right.
judge yourself.
It's about accepting and acknowledging.
See, there are exactly what Sumi is saying is that there can be two different ideas and both can be equally right. Right? That is what subject to you understand somebody else's standpoint. Right? So, for example, you feel this person is mean, but the person meant something else. So that is a relative. But at the same time, here when I talk about laws of gravity, it's not like the person is denying it and so let it all be true. We can't say that.
But it's a different presentation on the moon as versus the earth.
Exactly. So that means you need to understand the whole fact about relativity. There you can't then, because you have understood it, the way it works it on earth, you also can't apply it to the moon. So that means you need to be exactly, and you need to be accurate in what you're saying, right? So you can't just say, yeah, different people are saying different things, let us all accommodate everyone. There you can't do it. So you have to. So therefore, the teacher, the Vedanta teacher, if it's a job of Vedanta teacher.
The fact that this person has come to the Vedanta teacher,
Yeah.
this person who
Yeah.
was angry with
Yeah.
the teacher, is that you are willing to accept that this teacher has something to give me.
Yeah,
If
but
you are so strongly believing there are other things, then don't come.
so Bela, this is what I am trying to say. There is an unconscious mind, because consciously she wants to learn. Otherwise, she would not even be there, right? But there is this whole big unconscious mind with its own past values and past beliefs and past, and there is a huge resistance. And all these years, through her conscious mind, she stayed there. But that was not sorted out. What happened at the time of the talk, it all just came out. It is just amazing.
Yeah, she may not even have been.
She may not
aware.
exactly.
But it's nice that it does come out and then the resolve. Otherwise, it doesn't get resolved.
Exactly.
And communication is probably the best thing.
Absolutely. But the thing is, it came out as an anger,
Even if it sometimes comes
Yeah.
out as anger.
Exactly. But and we were all so shocked because
It's not physical violence.
yeah, we were so, and she just stood in front of everyone.
Because after
It is
3.5
years.
It's not come out earlier. It's a long
Exactly.
period of time.
Absolutely.
So, but then
Become
the
aware.
teacher also has to
That is
And-
that right.
be appreciative
and-
what is bothering.
It's something, and it's interesting. It came out in front of my teacher. It's like
How did
all exactly, and it was almost like being so angry and so rude. It was quite appalling, actually.
then
What
what
was
happened?
his response?
His reaction. So this is what I wanted to talk about. So he says, you know what, I'm not asking you to come here to study with me. If you have come to study with me, it becomes my responsibility to show you accurately what I have to teach you. Right? Now, if the truth hurts, let it hurt. Let it hurt. Because you can't deny that emotional investment that you have done, and whatever. So therefore,
that has not resolved.
exactly. So that means that pain is hurting her. It's giving her an opportunity to look into that pain. He is not going to be offended by what? Her behavior.
And he can't help her.
And
she has to process.
Exactly. So that means he's free of it. He's free of it, but at the same time there is this huge deep hurt. That's why I keep on saying that hurt, don't label it as negative emotion. Hurt is an indicator. Every emotion of yours is an indicator. It shows that something is not aligned. When it is not aligned, you have to use your free will to find out first where that non-alignment is and intervene appropriately to bring it back into alignment. It's an opportunity.
That is just so tough.
It's like even with medicine.
Yeah.
Okay, we have people who come for our opinion.
Yeah.
They've already come that this one said that and the internet said this and this one said that and that. And it feels like they're attacking my knowledge or whatever, right? But I have to tell them what I think is
Excellent,
the right
Bela.
treatment.
Absolutely.
And whether they go with it or not is
Is their problem.
But I can't make them happy. Try to align with what maybe Dr. So-and-so said, Dr. So-and-so said, or what the internet said.
Excellent. And that clarity has to be there.
A lot of times as a patient, we go to 3 doctors to satisfy ourselves and then weigh what each doctor has said because you don't know, because you're so desperate at that time. But even if the doctor is right, you still like to hear 3 opinions and then you weigh. So you do say those other opinions just to share, but you don't mean in a way of attacking your knowledge.
Some do. You may know.
I know. I'm just saying sometimes.
But
that's
you're right. Whether you are saying it as a statement of fact or you are saying it as an attack, she has to do what she has to do.
Sometimes
That is a very important thing. And then you want to exactly. She can't be influenced by what you are absolutely.
Because you want to have they align the 3 doctors who we're going to, or they have different opinions, and then it's up to us to who we felt more faith and believe in.
You get more confused. Because what do you think is if I go to 3 doctors, 2 will say one thing, 1 will say another thing, then I'll go with a majority win situation. That's what most people do. And unfortunately, all 3 say different things.
Sometimes what the minority is right.
Could be. It's just who you then have a EQ again, an attachment of belief in.
So that's
with the way
and
a
I'm
person
saying
spoke
as
to
a
you.
doctor, I have to evolve and know that just because somebody is telling me that this is what I've read on the internet, that doesn't mean that I'm being attacked. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I'm learning from this.
I misunderstood.
No, but so it is so true, right? So you have to do what you have to do. So this is what he said. Our teacher's response is, I have to do what I have to do. Right? Then taking care of hurt is your responsibility and I can help you.
I can guide you.
Right? But so that is the right way of, because sometimes in spite of who you are, what people may be very angry with you, and then what can you do? You only can do what you do. But you have to make sure that what you are doing is responsible. Okay, so that is what we saw is Acharya. So that means a teacher has a difficult job, and therefore there is a certain amount of respect that removing a veil is something which is important. I'll tell you how it is.
To understand that he should not become egoistical just because he's being given so much respect.
See, this is one thing that I want to point out that recently somebody invited me to some meditation. They said, oh, it's fantastic and this and that and please come and this and that. So I went there and Bye. So I went there, and the whole meditation is based on that there is somebody, some guru, right, who has special access to divine, and then that special access to divine, they are what, making it available to others when they are meditating with them. Okay, so this, then at the end I told this person who invited me, this goes so much against what what Vedanta is teaching. What is Vedanta teaching? It's not like I have some special divine access. Exactly, all that is here is one reality. What am I doing? I don't have any special, I'm just lifting your veil to see, hey, it's everywhere equally, right? It's not like I have some which I'm distributing to you. In that case, what will happen? I'll become the center of your whatever, this dependency. Okay, so that means
only these 6 magical words can help you to meditate.
Absolutely, I will
come from my
absolutely, and they make you absolutely that this is a kind of this mantra is mine, and then I'm going to. So this is the manipulation, exactly. Manipulation that people have. Gurus, if you're not responsible guru, it can be actually, So therefore, that lifting the veil, if there is not something which I have, I may help you to see what I see.
And this whole emotional thing is part of the process, because if I do not actually recognize that conflict, allow that emotional expression, understand the non-alignment, I cannot move forward.
Absolutely, I cannot move forward. So that's why he said, if the truth hurts, let it hurt, because it's an indicator. It has to. Right? So therefore, this teacher's role is it's quite a special role. Okay? And while everybody is learning and everybody is going through, the teacher has to help them in that whole process, but at the same time not make them over dependent. That is very important. Because otherwise what happens is that you then become like this guru who has key to everything, and people just keep coming. You can give them absolutely. They run to them for everything. They become totally subservient, and just all these. It is making you the complete person, and giving you the clarity to handle different situations of life. And the person is constantly available at every given point in time to help you through that process. That is Guru. Always available. But not taking over your life, making decisions for you, giving you unnecessary advice. Not at all. Okay? So therefore, first of all, to be connected to a person like that itself is a huge, you don't find many. And then to take right advantage, or take that opportunity to grow and take right help at different points in time is something which is a beautiful thing. Okay, so that is what we call Acharya Upasanam. Then the next one is Shaucham, which we will see next time. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.